At 19, a girl often stands at the delicate threshold of becoming, where curiosity beats louder than caution, and the thrill of the unknown feels irresistible. When she meets a 40-year-old man, it is not simply about the physical draw of attraction. It is about how his presence stirs something in her, a longing for what he seems to represent. He moves through the world with the confidence of someone who has already confronted many of life's uncertainties. His voice carries a calm that soothes her, and he seems to know the answers to questions she has barely begun to ask. She watches the way he orders his drink, the way he navigates conversation with an ease that feels foreign to her yet deeply magnetic. In him, she senses stability, a sense of control and direction that she hasn't yet found in her own life. It is as if he holds a blueprint to a future she cannot even name, and his very certainty seems to promise safety, wisdom, and the intoxicating possibility of a shortcut to adulthood. But we cannot dismiss the subtle tremor of the imbalance woven into their dynamic. The power he wields is not only rooted in age, but in years of experience in social resources, in a confidence built through trial and error. For her, each step in romance is a first, the first time she lets herself fall so deeply, the first time she feels this dizzying combination of lust and devotion. For him, there is perhaps a sense of nostalgia, the glow of rediscovering youth through her eyes, of feeling desirable and alive again, as if drinking from a fountain of youth she unknowingly offers him, and here between them a tension grows. Does she love him for who he truly is, or for the way he makes her feel about herself? And does he love her authentic self, or does he love the reflection of his own lost youth in her bright, unscarred innocence? The erotic pull is not only about bodies. It is about stories, about the narrative she wants to tell herself, that she is special enough to be chosen by a man of 40, that she has a maturity beyond her peers, that she is not a girl but a woman worthy of serious love. There is a kind of glamour in being with someone so far outside the sphere of her college classmates, a secret rebellion that sends a spark down her spine. The social transgression, the quiet taboo, becomes a part of their chemistry. Each glance they share in public feels laced with a silent question from the world, and that question fans the flame of their passion even more. Yet desire on its own cannot shield them from the complexity of this connection. And 19-year-old is still mapping out her sense of self, deciding what she believes in, who she wants to be, what love means to her. A 40-year-old, on the other hand, has already been shaped by triumphs and failures, heartbreak and hope, and so the places where their worlds overlap may not be strong enough to sustain them long term. Today, she is intoxicated by his knowledge and decisiveness, but tomorrow she might resent the difference in power, the subtle control, or the ways he dismisses her dreams as naive. Likewise, he might tire of having to translate his adult world for her, longing for someone who meets him on more equal footing. Still, there is something beautiful in how they find one another, at least for a time. She awakens a softness in him that he had buried under layers of disappointment, and he shows her a map of what desire can look like with someone who sees her as precious and worthy. These moments of connection can be profoundly meaningful, even if they are not meant to last forever. And if they can hold space for honesty, if he can respect her growth rather than try to mold her, if she can explore her independence rather than dissolve into him, then perhaps their love will teach them both what it truly means to choose each other freely, beyond the spell of difference and the glamour of taboo. Because no matter how large the age gap, the core of love always comes back to a simple question: can I see you, and can you see me for who we really are? When a 19-year-old girl allows herself to fall for a 40-year-old man, there is something undeniably seductive about how he stands apart from the boys she knows. He has mastered the art of conversation, weaving stories with nuance and wit, holding a certain calmness that soothes her restless energy. He seems unbothered by the frantic insecurities of youth, unafraid to look her in the eye with unwavering attention. That focus feels intoxicating. He makes her feel seen in a way her peers cannot match, as if he alone recognizes a deeper, hidden side of her that others overlook. In him, she tastes possibility, the possibility of skipping the uncertainty of immature relationships, of being chosen by someone who has already tested life's illusions and survived them. That reassurance can be powerful. For a young woman trying to define herself, there is something comforting about a man who appears to have already drawn his own map. Yet within this desire, a more complicated power dynamic pulses just beneath the surface. She brings to the table a kind of raw, sparkling energy, a hopefulness that he perhaps lost years ago. It revives him, this sense of youth, and he feels seen again, desired again through her unfiltered admiration. But the risk is that their attraction might not be built on true equality. He has lived through heartbreak, through compromise, through moral mistakes, and so he carries an invisible weight of experience. She, in contrast, is only beginning to experiment with who she is. Their bond might become tangled with projection. She may idealize him as a mentor or a rescuer, while he might see her as a symbol of rebirth, a fresh chance to rewrite his own regrets. In that tangle, true connection can be easily confused with fantasy, and authentic love can be eclipsed by their roles in each other's stories. Adding to this delicate tension is the forbidden thrill of their age gap. Her family, her friends, the world itself might recoil or question her choices, and that social defiance carries its own excitement. Transgression, after all, has always fueled erotic desire. It is the sense of breaking a rule, claiming a secret passion that only they understand, that can deepen their intensity. A stolen glance across a dinner table, the way he reaches for her hand when no one is watching. These tiny rebellions bond them, igniting a shared resistance against judgment. That shared secrecy can feel like intimacy, like a protective cocoon, but it also can blind them to the deeper differences between their realities. Because behind the thrill of the forbidden lies the challenge of how to merge two lives that have been shaped by radically different journeys. She is on the cusp of making major life choices: education, career, friendships, identity. He may already be rooted in habits, expectations, and even regrets that cannot bend easily to her unfolding dreams. The older man can offer wisdom, but that wisdom might also come with an expectation that she will follow his path, not her own. She risks, in this sense, losing her voice, or worse, never developing it, because his certainty feels so convincing. It is one thing to love, but another to surrender your power to someone whose very confidence may overshadow your still, growing self. That is where the greatest risk lies, in mistaking his clarity for truth and her own hesitation for weakness, when in fact her questions are part of becoming who she is meant to be. If they want to create a bond that endures beyond fantasy, they must confront these difficult truths together. Love should never require erasure. Love should not be built on a pedestal so high that it becomes impossible to see the human standing there. The 19-year-old deserves to be challenged to grow, not simply protected or admired, and he deserves to be loved for more than the stability he represents. Their age difference will always be present, but it can either serve as an opportunity to explore deeper honesty, or as a barrier that silences one of them. The question is not whether their love is possible, but whether they can truly meet each other as equals, able to see one another in all their vulnerabilities, beyond the thrill of what feels forbidden. Only then can their love breathe freely, beyond illusion. When a 19-year-old girl falls for a 40-year-old man, there is a magnetic tension that draws them together, a combination of youthful passion meeting seasoned confidence. She sees in him a doorway to a world far removed from the fumbling, chaotic energy of boys her age. He is composed, deliberate, thoughtful. His attention lands on her like sunlight warming places inside her that she barely knew existed. In him, she senses a protector, a guide, a lover who might help her transcend the confusion and experimentation of her peers. He seems to hold a steady compass in a world where her own direction still feels shaky. The security of his maturity, the decisiveness of his touch, the sureness of his words, these things form a potent cocktail of desire. It is easy for her to believe that being chosen by such a man confirms her worth, her uniqueness, her value beyond her years. Yet woven into this desire is a powerful dynamic of projection. A girl of 19 often still lives more in imagination than in true experience. Her first love is, in many ways, a mirror of her own idealism, and the 40-year-old becomes the blank screen on which she projects fantasies of a perfect lover. He appears sophisticated, worldly, endlessly patient, qualities she longs for in herself, and so she tries to find them in him. Likewise, he may project onto her the possibility of redemption, of youth regained, of second chances that have slipped through his hands. Her laughter, her boundless energy, even her naive questions awaken in him a spark of vitality he had nearly forgotten. These projections create an illusion of compatibility, one that feels intoxicatingly real until it collides with everyday life. It is here that the hidden cost of their bond may start to surface. A 19-year-old is still discovering who she is, trying on different identities, stretching the boundaries of her independence. Her desires shift with every experience, and her voice is only beginning to take shape. He, on the other hand, may have already decided the shape of his world. His routines, his beliefs, his sense of identity are likely far more fixed. When the initial wave of infatuation fades, their differences may no longer feel romantic, but instead frustrating, even suffocating. He might grow impatient with her need to explore, to change, to test limits. She might start to resent the subtle ways he corrects her or dismisses her dreams as too fragile, too naive. This clash is not just a difference of age, but a difference of life stages, and it can become painfully apparent once their fantasy gives way to daily reality. In many ways, their attraction is stoked by its forbidden nature. Society frowns on such an age gap, families whisper warnings, friends offer raised eyebrows. And that very resistance can be exhilarating. Every glance, every hidden touch carries the thrill of rebellion, of breaking a taboo together. They bond through secrecy, through the belief that no one else understands the special thing they have created. This sense of us against the world heightens their passion, weaving the illicit into the erotic. But what begins as a private conspiracy can become a heavy burden to carry, especially when outside pressures inevitably push in. If their connection is built only on the drama of being forbidden, what will happen when that tension dissolves, when they try to simply exist as a normal couple in the world? For their love to grow beyond the intoxicating haze, they will need to strip away the illusions and face the real questions. Who are you truly? Who am I truly? Can you love me as I change, and will I love you as you stand? This kind of radical honesty takes courage, because it means releasing the fantasy of a perfect mentor, a perfect savior, a perfect muse. It means seeing each other as flawed, human, and vulnerable without the protective glow of difference. Only then does the possibility of lasting connection appear, rooted not in an imbalance of power or the thrill of the forbidden, but in the authentic meeting of two imperfect people ready to navigate the vast space between their ages with empathy and respect. In the end, it is not their years that will define them, but their willingness to truly see and be seen. When a 19-year-old girl allows herself to love a 40-year-old man, it is more than a story of age. It is a story about power, about longing, about the sometimes blinding beauty of rebellion. She meets him at a moment in life when she is trying to define herself, to separate from the childhood world of parents and peers, to claim her own story. In him, she sees an invitation into a more sophisticated world, a world where she can feel grown and chosen and admired. He seems to carry no doubts, his self-possession is magnetic, his worldly confidence makes her heart race. Where she still feels unfinished and uncertain, he feels complete, and that sense of certainty wraps around her like a protective cloak. Yet underneath, a deeper question arises. Is she drawn to who he is, or to what he represents? That question becomes more complicated when we look at how the forbidden becomes its own aphrodisiac. Loving a man twice her age is, for many, a provocation, an act that stirs disapproval and even disgust from others. But in that friction lies excitement, the sweetness of crossing a line, of loving in secret, of claiming something that society says she should not want. Every disapproving glance, every whispered comment only intensifies the pull. The secrecy they share, the stolen kisses behind closed doors, becomes a kind of erotic language. Their togetherness is fed by what they must hide, and that secrecy gives them a sense of being united against the world. They mistake this hidden flame for unbreakable intimacy, believing that because they are defying the rules, they must be deeply in love. Yet that same secrecy can also be dangerous, because what is hidden is rarely examined in full light, and what is never examined cannot grow in truth. Beyond the social gaze, there is a genuine difference in emotional development that cannot be ignored. A 19-year-old is still collecting experiences, still testing and reshaping her own boundaries. Each relationship, each heartbreak, each discovery becomes a building block of her future self. A 40-year-old man has already crossed many of those thresholds, has lived through enough triumphs and regrets to have formed a more solid sense of identity. When these two worlds meet, the danger is that her growth may be stunted by the gravity of his influence. He might, even without meaning to, guide her too strongly, mold her to fit the contours of his preferences, shape her future through the sheer force of his confidence. And she, dazzled by his attention, might silence her emerging voice just to keep him pleased. Their passion may feel powerful in the beginning, but in time it risks suffocating her independence. There is also the question of whether love can survive when the intoxicating illusions inevitably wear off. What happens when she wants to chase her own dreams, to travel alone, to make reckless mistakes without permission? What happens when he grows tired of explaining his world to someone who has not lived enough years to share its weight? The very qualities that drew them together, his steadiness, her spark, might become points of conflict, moments of exhaustion, reminders that the bridge between their worlds is longer than they imagined. She may discover that her desire for growth cannot live inside the structure he offers, and he may realize that the fresh joy she gave him cannot outweigh their inability to live in sync. But if they can face these questions with honesty, they may find something richer than the initial thrill. Can they allow each other to change? Can he respect her evolution, her need to explore, her wish to stand on her own 2 feet? Can she accept the limits of his experience without trying to change him into a younger version of himself? These are not simple questions, and they have no guaranteed answers, but they are the doorway to something more genuine. Because the true measure of love is never in how powerfully it begins, but in how deeply it adapts. If they can learn to move beyond their roles, the wise teacher and the eager student, the rebel and the savior, then perhaps they can build a connection rooted in choice rather than in need, in freedom rather than in fear, and only in that freedom will they ever discover if their love can truly breathe. When a 19-year-old girl finds herself falling for a 40-year-old man, the world sees scandal, but she feels something far more complex, a pull toward maturity, stability, and the sweet illusion of certainty. This man carries an air of authority, a deep confidence born from years of trial and error, and in his presence she feels a sense of safety she has never tasted before. He seems to know how to hold space for her dreams, to speak to her fears with the calm assurance of someone who has survived his own storms. That is magnetic for a young woman standing at the raw edge of adulthood, overwhelmed by choices and flooded by inexperience. He becomes her anchor, her shelter, and she feels herself exhaling into him as if he might protect her from the chaos of becoming. And yet, the question that arises is whether that comfort comes at the price of her own growth, whether this love might soothe her too much, keeping her from standing on her own uncertain feet. Within that desire, there is a hidden language of power that colors their every exchange. A man of 40 has lived decades she cannot even imagine, shaping how he listens, how he loves, how he argues, and how he forgives. A girl of 19 is still trying to name her boundaries, still finding her voice, still wondering what it means to truly trust. These two worlds collide in a dance that is as thrilling as it is dangerous. His experience becomes an unspoken standard, making her feel at times like a student rather than an equal partner, and in those moments love can slip into something more controlling. Not through cruelty, perhaps, but through subtle patterns, the way he frames her dreams, the way he defines her struggles, the way he gives advice that sounds like rules. If she is not careful, she might trade her own vision of the world for his, convinced that his certainty is more correct simply because it is older. And there is the transgressive excitement, the secret fuel of their fire. Society draws lines around love, and theirs crosses one of those lines boldly. The thrill of secrecy, the excitement of rebellion, injects every kiss and every moment with a spark that ordinary relationships cannot match. They become co-conspirators, bonded by what they must hide from judging eyes. The sense that no one else could understand their story makes it feel special, almost sacred. That shared defiance can easily be mistaken for intimacy, for a sign that their love is uniquely strong. But the moment they step out of the shadows, the question becomes whether that same connection can survive in plain daylight, stripped of the adrenaline that secrecy provides. If their entire foundation is built on fighting the world, what happens when the fight ends? Beyond all that, their differences carry a risk of unmet needs. A young woman might crave freedom, a chance to change, to experiment, to break and heal and break again. That is the gift of youth, its reckless bravery, its constant reinvention. A man of 40, even one deeply in love, might long for stability, a sense of predictability, the comforting rhythm of a life that no longer needs so many firsts. These hungers can pull them in opposite directions, and even the strongest attraction might fracture under the weight of those diverging paths. The things that made her irresistible to him, her wildness, her dreams, her freshness, might also be the very things that refused to be contained, and she might one day feel trapped by the walls of his steadier world. Still, there is a possibility, if they choose it with honesty, for their love to evolve beyond these differences. If he can make space for her to grow, to rebel not only against the world, but even against him sometimes, then she may learn to trust that she will not lose herself in his arms. If she can look at him not as a father figure or rescuer, but as a human being with flaws and limits, then she may love him more deeply than she ever imagined. The real test of their relationship is whether it can transform from a place of imbalance to one of mutual choice, a love born not from fear or fantasy, but from the courage to see each other. Clearly, in the end, it is not how they started, but how they choose each other day after day that will tell the true story of their bond.